The Seal of Prophets, His Personality and Character by Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih IV. Text of a lecture delivered by the head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jama'at on 15th October 1989 at Heathland School, Hounslow. We now present this book in audio form. Publisher's note. On 15th October 1989, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, the supreme head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim community, delivered the following lecture about the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, entitled The Seal of Prophets, His Personality and Character. The address was delivered at Heathland School in Hounslow. Many distinguished guests, including the mayor of Hounslow and some members of parliament, attended it. In 1992, this address was published in the form of a booklet. By the grace of Allah, it has now been revised, and this edition is reprinted with some amendments and additions. The Seal of Prophets, His Personality and Character. Say, I am only a man like yourselves, but I have received the revelation that your God is only one God. So let him who hopes to meet his Lord do good deeds, and let him join no one in the worship of his Lord. Holy Quran, chapter 18, verse 111. Your worship, the Mayor of Hounslow, honorable members of Parliament, and other distinguished guests. We consider this function a very holy occasion because of the subject to be discussed here. I am deeply honored and overjoyed to speak to you about something I love so much. Chapter 1. Kalima Shahada and Western View of Muhammad. To begin with, I recited before you the Kalima Shahada. Then I read the opening chapter of the Holy Quran and a verse from a chapter called Al-Kahf. Kalima Shahada, which I recited, was the more elaborate version of the one generally known. It is in two parts. First, Allah is one, there is no God but Allah, and the other, Muhammad is his servant, a man and a prophet. The emphasis is on man before you move on to consider him as a prophet. It was the shorter version of the Kalima that was before Gibbon, a famous Orientalist and historian, when he opined on it. Bosworth Smith writes about it in Muhammad and Mohammedanism as follows. It is almost equally strange that Gibbon, who has done such full justice to Muhammad in the general result, should say at starting, Muhammad's religion consists of an eternal truth and a necessary fiction. There is one God and Muhammad is his prophet. Smith goes on to develop this by saying, it was, as I have endeavored to show, no fiction to Muhammad himself or to his followers. Had it been so, Mohammedanism could never have risen as it did, nor be what it is now. We are grateful to Bosworth Smith for fairly presenting one excellent Western attitude towards Islam, and particularly towards the holy founder of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He discusses the two phases of Islam's rise and fall in his lecture, Muhammad and Mohammedanism, and I quote from him. During the first few centuries of Mohammedanism, Christendom could not afford to criticize or explain. It could only tremble and obey. But when the Saracens had received their first check in the heart of France, the nations which had been flying before them faced round as a herd of cows will sometimes do when the single dog that has put them to flight is called off. And though they did not yet venture to fight, they could at least calumniate their retreating foe. Now follows the examples of calumniation as recorded by Smith. He says, in the romance of Turpin, quoted by Renan, Muhammad, the fanatical destroyer of all idolatry, is turned himself into an idol of gold, and under the name of Mahomet is reported to be the object of worship at Cadiz. Then he says, he is Antichrist, the man of sin, the little horn, and I know not what besides, nor do I think that a single writer, with the one strange exception of the Jew Maimonides, till towards the middle of the 18th century, treats of him as otherwise than a rank impostor and false prophet. To build this subject further, he goes on quoting from Renan. The romances of Baphomet, so common in the 14th and 15th centuries, attribute any and every crime to him, just as the Athanasians did to Arius. He is a debauchee, a camel stealer, a cardinal who, having failed to obtain the object of every cardinal's ambition, invents a new religion to revenge himself on his brethren. He occupies a conspicuous place in the Inferno. Dante places him in his ninth circle among the sowers of religious discord. With the leaders of the Reformation, Muhammad, the greatest of all reformers, meets with little sympathy, and their hatred of him, as perhaps was natural, seems to vary inversely as their knowledge. Luther doubts whether he is not worse than Leo. Melanchthon believes him to be either Gog or Magog, and probably both. See Quarterly Review, Art, Islam by Deutsch, number 254, page 296, Muhammad and Mohammedanism, Lecture 2, pages 59 and 60. Chapter 2, New Era of Interpretation of Islam. Unfortunately, this sad chapter of calumny and extreme expression of hatred against the holy founder of Islam did not come to an end. However, we do see a change in the wind which has brought about one of the outstanding writers on Islam from England, that is, Thomas Carlyle. He ushered in a new era of an approach toward Islam. In an age darkened by hatred, he was the first lark with the courage and nobility to sing the praises of Prophet Muhammad, and was the first swallow to give an indication of the coming spring. After Carlyle, things began to change but did not go on to develop into a steady trend. Instead, it remained an interrupted phenomena. We see that all through the history of criticism of the Prophet Muhammad, there were scholars who sank back to their past, with a Salman Rushdie being born here and there. The birth of Rushdie is not a new phenomenon in the history of religious bigotry. Deeply related to ignorance, the lack of tolerance is something well known to man. The introduction of the great Orientalist Carlyle has already been made. Now let me quote two important passages from his book, Heroes and Hero Worship. He says, "Alas, such theories are very lamentable. If we would attain to knowledge of anything in God's true creation, let us disbelieve them wholly. They are the product of an age of skepticism. They indicate the saddest spiritual paralysis and mere death life of the souls of men. More godless theory, I think, was never promulgated in this earth. A false man found a religion? Why, a false man cannot build a brick house. If he do not know and follow truly the properties of mortar, burnt clay, and what else he works in, it is no house that he makes, but a rubbish heap. It will not stand for 12 centuries to lodge 180 millions. It will fall straightway." Page 279. He observes, "The lies which well-meaning zeal has heaped around this man are disgraceful to ourselves only." When Pococky inquired of Grotius where the proof was of that story of the pigeon, trained to pick peas from Mahomet's ear and pass for an angel dictating to him, Grotius answered that there was no proof. It is really time to dismiss all that. Page 279. The one central, most important epithet in the Kalima is the word Abd, which describes the prophet as a man and a slave, a man so true that he became the most devoted servant of his Lord. Today I have chosen not to speak on the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, but have elected to highlight his personality as a man, as a simple servant of God, and as a humble person